Broadcast. Welcome to the Zaner MarketCast, your one and only spot to keep up with all of the agricultural market news. And we certainly have some today on the June 28th post-grain stock, quarterly grain stock and acreage report day. Little bit going on. My name is Joe Nikruto. I'm here with...
I'm Dan Hussey from Zaner Ag Hedge.
And also...
I'm Tony Frein.
There you go,
Tony.
How's it going? Another broker here with us at Zaner. He's located down in Arkansas, joining us today to give some more insights on some other markets we don't normally talk about, but also, a big news day here in the across the whole spectrum.
That's right, Dan. Today we're going to talk about this quarterly grain stocks and planted acreage estimate numbers. We're going to cover the weekly recap and also price action that we've seen. And maybe we've got a news story in here for Carter as well. And also the one we all look forward to, Carter's favorite question of the week. Yeah, question of the week. So interestingly, on this, Tony, and I don't know if I'm sure you noticed, the USDA NAS website today, bit of a snafu, had us all waiting for the data.
Yeah.
And Dan was in direct contact. Dan, tell the story. I think you had permission to contact them.
And to back up a minute here, Joe has tried to call the USDA in the past, and we got almost denied that request because we were asked if we had "quote unquote" permission to be calling this number.
Yep.
I thought as a U.S. taxpayer we might, but okay.
You should, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I had tweeted to the NASS to just have you been hacked, right? And they responded back with we can neither confirm nor deny what happened. Our IT people are looking into it, but I think all of us. I mean, I know Tony. We talked about it earlier. We couldn't get that number for how long? I mean, 15, 20 minutes at least before we all realized it was at another location.
Tony, have you ever been hacked?
Yeah, no, luckily not. But I thought I was about to call Dan earlier because I was like, I think my internet's messed up or something.
We all had that issue.
We felt the same way. Absolutely.
We were, trading and trying to do things when you're blind, having people ask you what's going on and you don't have answers. It's the worst place to be.
Yeah.
Rather awkward.
It really, really was. But it does look like, for those that don't know, the number was eventually released from a Cornell University archive. I guess the USDA and Cornell have a long-standing relationship. Cornell archives all the USDA data, and we were able to eventually get the number as the NASS and the USDA posted eventually on their Twitter feeds to go look at that Cornell site. Where they must have emailed it or sent it over to them saying, hey, get this out because we can't. And nevertheless, the market reaction was definitely interesting to say the least in the first moments after the number was supposed to be out. But then by the end of the day, what the market was able to digest the number. And boy, I know from my perspective, it was certainly a letdown as to what I thought was going to happen.
And so if we go off script for a minute, just the idea that this is a certain type of information that maybe the chain of custody on is not quite. I mean, I certainly have questions about chain of custody with the information.
And when you say that, you mean like trusting the source it's from, or what?
Who has access to this information when?
Yes.
So you look at a 1 minute chart. Certainly the 11 o'clock minute. Tony, I'm sure you noticed not a whole lot going on. The 11:01 minute, not a whole lot going on. And then as the moments tick by, and I can't remember how long it was until we were in possession of the information or until other reputable sources of information dissemination became or came online with this information. But there was a lot of trading activity that began to take place before all market participants had the information.
Yeah.
And I wonder who else is going to be asking those questions. You know what I mean? Am I off base? Am I wrong to be asking that?
No, I'm sure there's plenty of headache out there. I mean, I almost was watching it and thought, well, this is, not that big of a reaction and considered a position, and I'm sure plenty of others took a position,
Right.
Because, because I just, I didn't know that, I guess technology can always go wrong, but I just thought, if it's going to come out at 11 o'clock, it's going to come out at 11 o'clock. There's not going to be a delay.
Right.
And how many jobs do those folks have on the day where maybe one of the biggest reports of the growing season is released? Do you know what I mean? I recognize that it's a Friday and maybe there's a 4-day work week involved somewhere, but my goodness, it also, to me, seems like it's a small thing to ask, is that we task you with this important, it's very important to get this information out. Maybe we can get it right. Maybe that's unfair. I'm certain it's a big job, but you got one job. You know what I mean? Get it done. Get it done. And it was a long time. And so now then we got to get our information from a university. And I mean, I'm not necessarily against that in theory, but in practice.
It was almost impossible not to put the conspiracy theory hat on for those first few minutes and wonder what's going on.
You had 2 or 3 conspiracy hats on.
So many. And I had to air all of that before we go on air today, because I'd be sitting here ranting and raving about how terrible this all is, you know?
Certainly. Should we, you think we should hit this news story first?
Yeah.
And then jump into some price action? You think we'll knock it right out?
Yeah, it kind of puts us into a framework of, I guess the acreage report today. So
a little bit of context, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Flooding across the upper Midwest here. Chris Clayton from DTN is reporting that governors of Iowa, Minnesota, and South Dakota over the weekend each issued emergency declarations as heavy rains that began late in the week flooded rivers throughout the region. A swath of counties in northwest Iowa, southwestern Minnesota, and southeastern South Dakota saw rainfall Thursday through Saturday that ranged anywhere from 5 to 8 inches, and in some places as much as 15 inches. I mean, that isn't a tremendous amount of rain.
No doubt about it.
We're talking over a foot of water in that short time frame. There's no wonder we saw, rivers, lakes,
Thursday,
and
Friday, Saturday,
and quite literally new ponds creeping up across the Midwest. Ag meteorologist Don Banarak said that heavy rains fell in that general area, but also east through southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and into parts of Michigan. And I can definitely tell you, just in my own backyard in the Chicago suburbs, I had not seen rain come down like that. We only got one storm through that. It was like you looked outside, you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. There was so much water. I've never seen that in maybe ever, but certainly it's been a long time. These areas may be able to handle the heavier rain better as they've not seen the extensive rainfall. And he's talking about northern Illinois and Wisconsin there, as they had not seen the extensive rainfall that those in the western areas experienced prior to the deluges last week. Heavy rain has been a large nuisance and damaging factor for the northwestern Corn Belt for much of the last couple months. And Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, declared a state disaster for 22 counties after touring the flooded areas on Saturday. And on Sunday, Reynolds requested an expedited presidential disaster declaration that would access programs from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and Small Business Administration in the USDA. While we're still very early in the response, the projected damage is staggering, Reynolds says, and this is a number coming from their office here, in the estimates that at least 1,900 properties are impacted and hundreds have been destroyed. In Omaha, the National Weather Service has predicted the Missouri River has risen 12 feet over the week and forecasted of a 35.5 foot crest, 34.5, cresting there, which would compare to flood levels in 2019. I'm sure there's numbers on other rivers impacted, including the Mississippi, that we're not seeing there. But yeah, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected. And we're not surprised, though, to just give a good segue into today's report, we're not surprised to see the USDA not talking about this in their acreage report, because it's not, the number they're supposed to be releasing. But at the same time, I don't know you guys, but I was
seen reports, right? Even our own Ted has been on Facebook or was reported on Facebook, was in the media saying 500,000 to maybe 1 million. Some other estimates higher than that. I think
you're saying of the current damage.
Yeah, damage. And so certainly that those numbers are not in these USDA numbers
reports,
for today.
Right.
These numbers were taken in the first 2 weeks of June by survey, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Is that right, Tony? By survey in the first 2 weeks of June, I think.
That sounds right, yeah.
And so I think if you guys will allow, let's jump into the weekly numbers and then we'll
come back.
We've got some context here. So corn on the week, December corn, where the volume and open interest is highest, 454 and a quarter was the open. The high, 455, low 412, close 421 and a half. Now that was down 31 and 3/4 on the week. Funds prior to today's price action, funds were estimated by our friends at ADM to be short 257,000 contracts. And so that, what do you think about that?
I mean, we're closing in already on a record short yet again,
For
and
this
now
time of the
down
year, right?
31 cents on the week. What are they going to peg us at? I know that reading, that commitment traders reading is taken every Tuesday, but today with the downside price action and the massive volume spike we saw,
massive,
was
50,000 contracts in Dece right there,
just
on
after
that,
the number,
right after the number.
Right. I mean,
and so if you had to, Tony, if we come into today at 257,000 estimate, if you had to put a guess on it, and it's going to be convoluted because we're not going to get the commitment of traders. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the commitment of traders data collection stopped on Tuesday.
Correct.
So you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Correct.
You got this estimate. Then you come back next week, and there's a 4th of July in there as well, 4th of July holiday.
I completely forgot we got a complete holiday week next week.
Coming right up. So it's not a complete week. I think we're out on Thursday,
Correct.
but back on Friday.
Correct. Thursday is just closed. We open, I think, Friday morning. So Thursday just doesn't exist for all intents and purposes.
Let's take a guess. If it's 257,000 today, what will it be on the next report? Tony, you're the guest.
Oh boy.
Pick a number.
Man,
Do we put a 3 in front of
Yeah,
it?
so that, okay, let's make it easy.
That's what I was about to
Right.
say.
Three or
So
under?
they're
I
gonna
think
add-
we're over or under 300,000 here.
I'm going to say 3 even was coming to mind.
All right,
so I'm
yeah,
gonna
very
say
good.
that-
Yeah, that's a
I
good.
was-
That's a
I
good
was
one.
there too. I think
300K. You think so? Yeah, I'm gonna take the over. I'm
The
gonna go
over 300.
320. Yeah, 320.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, and I got to go back and look at what the historicals are, I think that is a new record by a fair percentage.
I think we've been in record territory. Yeah, and so if we could jump around just a bit, if you get to the quarterly grain stocks for corn, since we're talking about corn, what do we have there? 4.993, which was about 1.2 million higher than the estimates, and right up bumping into the top of the range in corn.
And
Am I
almost
right?
a billion extra bushels here compared to last year at this time too, right? I mean, we're okay, 800 million,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like,
It's
let's
still a pretty
be
big,
fair, like,
pretty
right?
big number. Now, what I noticed or what I read was that in corn, 3.03 billion bushels stored on farm, according to USDA NAS, with 1.97 billion bushels stored off farm. My question to you guys is if you've got 1.97, almost 2 billion bushels stored off farm, why is the basis so strong?
Oh, we're getting into it today. I mean, you're not wrong, right? Like, if all of that corn is off, I mean, well, I think you said it before that though. You've got 3 billion bushels still on farm. That if there is demand and domestic demand out there, which apparently there is, because basis has been strong in plenty places, right?
Yeah.
You've got to wonder. I mean, we know the export market for corn has been there. It's not been the best, but okay, it's there. There's could be some other driving factors. Heck, crude oil's up. Gasoline prices are up. Ethanol demand should be up. Yada yada. But it seems to me like, how is the price of corn going down so precipitously? I know today's a report day, but like, if basis is so strong and corn prices are going down, like, what is the dynamic that's that is pushing this? Obviously, we're trying to get commercial interests are trying to, I think, have their cake and eat it too, right? They're trying to get the lowest price for corn they can, but yet they're trying to give you this incredible basis to try to convince you to sell it. And we have such strong-handed on-farm storage that doesn't want to let it go.
So shift gears on that. 91.47, Tony, 91.47 acres. That was higher than the average trade guess and right up near the top end of the range. Still 94.6 last year. So you're down from last year.
Yep.
But that 91.47 included 3 million plus acres in the survey that had yet to be planted. And so where is our 91.47 number if you start to factor in some of these guesses about what has been impacted by the flooding?
Oh, in other words, how many acres do you think are impacted by the flooding? Right?
Yeah, they're not. That's
This
not
is
in. I don't think
without
that's in here, right?
impact, right? No,
I'm
no,
guessing that
it's not.
91.47, and I'm not smart enough to know.
Correct. I mean, anywhere, but right? There's. I'll kick it over to Tony. I mean, in your best guess or estimates, compare like how high is that versus reality? Do you think?
The 91 against what?
Yeah, against the reality of maybe what corn is right now.
Because certainly 91.47. I wonder. how much lower can that number be? They get some opportunity to revise this in September. I think the next chance to revise this is in August. But I wonder if they're calling it 91.47 and we don't have, and there's no impact from flooding in that, they're not accounting for 500,000 to 1 million. There's some estimates upwards of 5 million acres impacted by this flooding or this extensive rain. I just wonder what this acreage number could really be, or if it's worth, if at this stage, if it's worth guessing about, or do we have to go with the 91.4 number and just work it out?
I'd say my personal opinion would be we're going to have to go with it because it seems like they're always slow to make adjustments.
They don't come
in the
quickly.
past, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, I feel like we won't know for sure until we get into next fall at some point, and they'll start saying, well, maybe we weren't what we said we were.
Yeah, and that brings up the question of those backward revisions now, right? That seems to be the status quo of how the USDA likes to operate. They err on the side of caution and then like to tell us later, like, oh yeah, here, I'm glad you brought your eraser, right, to now change the number. And it's unfortunate, but that is what we've all been conditioned to. And I agree with you, Tony. I don't think there's any reason to think that they're not sandbagging us here, for lack of a better term, but you got to take it at face value for what it is. And certainly the trade agreed, in terms of the price action today.
How about beans? November beans, we opened the week at 11.21.5. The high was 11.32 3/4. Low 11 even. Did not take that 11 number out on the report. Closed at 11.04. That's down 16 on the week. Funds coming into the day short almost 90,000 contracts.
And I don't mean to cut back to corn real quick, but I did want to say something on the technical element here, which is something Joe and I have been talking about on that December corn chart. That head and shoulders pattern breaking below 460 here was that neckline. The first target of the downside is your old February low, which we hit down around the 440, whatever that was, level. And now we are down to, and I'm sure you'll see this chart on your screen, but we are now down to that 100% extension down into the 420 area. Interesting, we closed it there today. But that is just, the where we began the pattern to the head extended from that neckline down. We've effectively hit that downside technical pattern. Now, that doesn't give me a reason to want to be a buyer per se, but I will say any kind of technical shorting opportunity in this market, they've hit a profit target to some extent. So to give us with at least a little bit of a bright light at the end of the tunnel for the downside in corn, it's interesting that into the end of the week, end of the quarter, end of the month, those profit targets were hit from that speculative trading style there. Back to soybeans, however.
Also,
Tony.
Well, so, I was going to say, just to backtrack again on the, I looked here, and if this article is accurate as far as the net short position, it looks like the record was back in February at 340,000 contracts. So
I'm glad you did. I'm glad somebody's doing their homework here, but okay. So that almost makes me feel like we might be closing in on 350 or something, at an
awkward time of the year, right? And so, if you're confident that, and it would appear that weather is relatively benign so far, but just a time of the year where they don't normally do that, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Right.
So with this beans, we're short coming into the day, we're short about 90,000 contracts, 466 million in terms of stocks on farm, 504 million off farm. Soybean number came in just a little bit higher than the average at 970 million bushels. That breakdown, 466 on farm, 504 off farm. I don't know that I can conspiracy theory anything on that through that. But my question is, what about this inverted market?
Oh.
And so if you've got an inverted market and funds are short, seems to me like somebody somewhere, we're going to have to reconcile that. You either have an inverted market or funds are short.
And Joe's referring to that old crop, new crop spread, July Nov and right now August Nov at I'm going to say 50 and 30 cents over on both of them. There's been a bull spreading trend there in those calendar spreads in a otherwise downtrending market since May. It's hard to reconcile that.
Which is not how that normally works.
No, it's not at all how it works. It makes you really wonder what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak, on commercial interests and taking carry out of the market at a time when we should be building it in a downtrend. Something doesn't add up, right? You smell smoke, there's fire. the numbers today on planted acreage and quarterly grain stocks, generally, I mean, kind of a push, in my opinion, definitely within, a small percentage of what the reported trade guesses were. I mean, even beat it on the acreage number, which to me was shocking to see corn higher and beans lower. You would have thought the complete opposite in this environment of a late plant and everything else.
Yep.
Yeah, here's the USDA holding strong on this.
So planted acreage number bullish.
Yeah, right, by 600,000 acres, excuse me. I know it's not a lot at the end of the day. That's kind of a drop in the bucket in the total acreage argument, but you lose acres in soy. Your quarterly grain stocks is pretty much a push. Yet we closed down on the day. Was that just in sympathy with corn?
We were pretty break even on the day.
Were we? I mean,
either way, but I
down like
understand,
nothing, right? Like
I
it was
understand what you're saying.
You're right.
Absolutely
Novi
right.
Beans was basically a giant doji at 1104. We were lower here on the August contract, but generally speaking, right, it wasn't the down day that you had in corn. Is I guess what I'm getting at, right?
Is it the meal deal that's driving this?
Oh.
Are we exporting more meal? And is that what you're seeing here in terms of the front month strength in beans?
That's a good question. I mean, we know that on this desk, and certainly we've always talked about the idea that meal needs to be a driver. We don't usually see beans rally without meal following or really leading the way here. But we've also seen a meal and oil chart and bean oil that are pretty much sideways. They really haven't gone a whole lot of anywhere in the last few months when, we've had a general trend lower here for soybeans. You're below those February lows again for beans as well. And do you happen to have the commitment to traders estimates in front of you for soybeans?
For beans, yeah, down about 89. Coming into the day, down about 90,000.
Yeah. Short, total short 90,000.
And that number is going to be different, obviously, the next
Yeah.
time we see it. But the estimate was about 89,000 short in beans.
And I also see people joking about how beans don't hanging around $11. They either go to 12 or 10. And okay, I've got nothing to say on that perspective. That other than now we're below that February low and in a trend lower. While I'd like to see a bottom form, you got to wonder which way is it going to go here, and is it going to commit to lower prices? It's beans. Beans are one that I need to take the weekend personally to digest kind of what happened.
Bean oil opened the week 44.21. The high was, this is August bean oil now. August bean oil and August bean meal opened at 44.21. The high was 44.43. Low 42.80. Closed at 44.07. Much like you mentioned, only down 13 tick.
Right?
So funds short 67,000 contracts of oil.
Surprisingly, meal.
Yep.
No.
Go ahead.
No.
That
I was
was
going to
oil.
ask you. That was oil. What's the meal? I don't know it.
Well, here we go. So we opened the weekend meal at 349.20, and August bean meal high was 359.50, low 344.10. The close 346. That was down 270. No great shakes, right? They're still long 87,000 contracts, and I was trying to remember
around that 90,000
right.
mark.
We were last week. I think it was like 92 or something. I can't remember. So they're not really moving too much in the meal, which is very, very interesting that you would be short both beans and oil,
and then long meal. Which is a decently sized, prospect there.
For sure.
Tony, I mean, did you see anything on beans, or did anything stick out to you in price action this last week or off this report at all?
What you mentioned just a second ago, I think the trade, at least until the end of the day today, was probably in sympathy with corn a little bit. I felt like they tried to hold it together, but they just, I guess, got weighed down, until the weekend. I guess we are, ending the quarter here, ending the month. So,
end of quarter, end of month. Not WASD, USDA, NAS, quarterly grain stocks, planted acreage. Absolutely. There's a whole lot of stuff going on
Botched data release.
Right. Massive.
All the things, man.
Large impact from flooding. Indiana and Illinois hit the drought map again this week. How about wheat? We opened the week in September wheat at 576 3/4. The high was 586 1/4. Low 556 3/4. Closed at 573 1/2. Interestingly, we have been here for 3 or 4 weeks where wheat has been getting creamed. Right? You see what I did there, Tony? Wheat has been getting creamed. But this week, kind of the rate of decline has been arrested. Only down 2 1/4 on the week, funds short about 76,000 contracts, 76,000 contracts a week, but we did not take out the September contract 550 low, or we have not. And so,
and higher highs and higher lows for 2 days running for, well, not the KC contract, but Chicago September wheat.
Kind of interesting that we might be coming to a point here where you could anticipate of the potential for a bit of a turn.
And not quite an exact double bottom, but you look at that daily chart
You're
since
near it, right?
March to today, right? I mean, we unwound that rally in like record time, like a scary record time. I mean, with only
I don't remember seeing something. I can't remember something in the ag market.
We've talked about this extensively. Like you look at the wheat chart and I'm like, I don't ever remember a time where you just went systematically down in pretty much a perfect, I don't know, this isn't even 45 degrees down. This is like,
the symmetry is alarming.
It's insane. Kind of, the only words that come to mind are like unprecedented sell-off in wheat, because there isn't much here driving this. I mean, I know planting, the only thing I'll say is, okay, we are through half of that spring wheat harvest, winter wheat harvest. Spring
Hedge
wheat
pressure
is looking, better than expected, so to speak. But I mean, okay, so what, we rallied on that Russian news perhaps, and then now have unwound it. I mean, it feels, I hate to say it, but it feels a lot like the top we found during the start of the Ukrainian crisis, where people thought the war would go on for, ever, which it has, but that hasn't affected the price of wheat other than the initial march higher. I mean, I can't even say anything technically about this chart. It's just been straight down until the last few days.
Typically with that kind of straight down, and this is not the most scientific thing I'm going to say all day, but typically with that kind of move, you're going to have to correct. You're going to have some sort of correction sooner or later.
I mean, this is a question posed to both of you, right? Like, I mean, is this just a lack of liquidity trading wheat? I mean, it's been like there's been a vacuum of space between levels that just up and then back down. There's no participation here. I mean, the march up had a little bit of up and down, but the way down was just straight down. I mean, what do you even classify or say this as, right? As like a market technician.
Tony, what do you think about that?
I think that it certainly can weigh into it. See it all the time in the rice. It's so, illiquid and, just not a lot of volume there that you can, I mean, you'll probably noticed if you've looked at, the rice trade any here recently, got some, I think it was limit down, July, which I know we're coming to the end there, but, I think it was limit down for a little bit the other day and then right back up.
Got a good bounce right back, didn't you?
Right.
In the other contract, in the next contract.
What
follows July? Is it September or August?
September.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue here for Tony to give us some numbers on rice here today. I'm looking at the chart myself since February, almost like an inverted chart. It looks like wheat on the way down here.
Yeah. I think it. So last, going back a ways, you had the whole export bans, India export bans, that was kind of playing into the market last year that everybody thought, all right, we're fixing to go to $30, on the board or high. And, it did, I guess you can call it a slow grind higher through the winter and through the spring. And we did, kind of rally hard into early spring. And, I think that was off of, there's not a lot of rice left out there. I think there's only 335 receipts left down here right now, and so I think it's a pretty tight situation. But I think right now, I think we're coming up on new crop, and guys are just holding out for that. I don't expect a big price rally. But as far as the numbers today, I mean, total rice stocks were up 37% from last year at 60 million hundredweight, with long grain about 55% of that at 33.2 million hundredweight, which is up about 500,000 from last year. I mean, we consider that totally burdensome. I don't want to make too big of a stretch and call it bullish, but most of the gain in the total rice stocks was California with their medium grain, which was, they went up from about 8 million last year to 24 million this year. And so, but that's another problem with rice. That is a big jump for the medium grain. But that's another problem with the rice. Like, guys will see the total numbers where, long grain is really what you're trading on the board, and a 37%, increase in stocks sounds, not great, but it really wasn't in long grain, and so until you dig into the numbers but Arkansas acres are going to be up this year about 100,000 is what they're projecting right now at 1.32 million, I believe. That's up from, like I said, about 100,000 from last year. And so, I think in all, long grain acres are, what were they, right around 200, yeah, 2.9. I think year over year, it was only total acres was basically unchanged, but long grain did add, I want to say, 200 or so total, which, that's going to add about 14 million hundredweight, I guess, to the, stocks there that, I don't know. I don't consider anything overly burdensome, but, I think it could just be, we're going to have to get into new crop now and see how the harvest goes and all that before, get too excited about any big jumps or, I don't project any falling out of bed, but, I guess nothing to really get excited about in the report today for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like pretty much a push on those those planted acres against the trade estimates. Up a little bit year over year, but some growth is expected anywhere, and certainly if international demand is there, I mean that's not something to really worry about. It seemed like the chart of rough rice here in the September contract was just really traded down into the 55-day moving average. It's got the 200-day not far below, which is kind of in the low end of the range we've been in. I mean, since February, rice has had a substantial rally and arguably a little bit of a bull flag. I mean, what do you think that taking out the highs of the year is more the course of action that could happen given the current carryouts and everything, or is this a better time to think about managing your risk? I mean, I only ask because hey, when we were back at $5 to $6 corn and whatever, right? Like you look back on it, the woulda, coulda, shoulda of. We got some sales done, right? At $13 beans, you should have got some sales done. Is rice at a price where, like, from a marketing perspective, these prices are good, from, in your opinion? Like, give us that rundown.
Yeah, they're not bad for sure, and I would be watching it as far as, making these sales. I was talking with my dad earlier and he hasn't sold any of our, family farm rice yet. Just kind of been watching it because there has been, good demand. We've been selling a lot of rice. If that keeps up, we'll eat through, some of this carryover and I think, set us up for a decent fall, but you're going to have harvest pressure, and it's I guess hard to put my thumb on it as far as what I really feel. I feel like it's been kind of floating a little sideways, and I think maybe getting out of this July contract will help a little bit and maybe spur some things off, a little more interest in the new crop. I think there is some like I said, we're running low on receipts. So, I mean, the demand for rice has been there. I mean, we're if that keeps up, then.
So if we hear you right, Tony, if we hear you right, you mean best to stay current, but you're optimistic for what's going to happen coming into the fall.
Yeah. I'd say that's a great way to put it.
I get it. Yeah, okay. I mean, and the chart doesn't give you any cause for concern. I mean, it looks like a bull flag after a run up. You and me both would probably sit here and say, hey, well, expect continuation higher to some extent, but
what else can we say? Right. What else can we say about these numbers in general? So on the face, right? If you're willing to take these numbers today on the face, no real major bullish surprise here. Market reacted in kind. You maybe got a little bit of something to hang your hat on here on the soy side of the acreage story, but mostly these numbers came in on their face. Rather bearish now.
Yeah, and it's particularly that corn number, right? I can speak for myself. I was not expecting to be adding, 1.2 billion or million acres above the trade estimates here into corn. I'll be the first to say and eat crow on that one, right? I mean, Tony, Was there outside that corn estimate? I mean, was there anything? What were you expecting today? I mean, there's no right or wrong answers here because we were all all pretty wrong.
I didn't know if it was going to come to acres or the stocks, but I guess I was in the camp that we'd get a bullish surprise on the corn, in one form or another. And I guess that was, my take and what I was, looking at or hoping for.
And so now maybe the job of the market is to parse these numbers and to see, we're going to get a clear indication here in the next week or two how the market feels about these numbers. So I can't remember who the analyst was saying, maybe you get some sort of knee-jerk reaction today. Folks were slightly shocked.
Knees were jerked.
Right. So and a little discombobulated because of the data snafu. But as folks put pencil to this and start to think about maybe the implications of the rains that we've had in places, maybe we see some price action that sort of takes some of this bearish response back, is my thought.
Well, that's what, I guess I would add that too, that I guess even if it wasn't a bullish surprise, I almost thought that we've taken it on the chin in corn pretty hard here recently.
For some days, right?
I guess
Absolutely.
I thought that they could.
Yeah.
I thought they might even just try to,
completely murder it.
Bounce off a bearish, report, just kind of fade that.
Oh, I understand.
We priced it all in.
I mean, it gets so red. At some point, things get so bearish, you get that overwhelming pessimism in the market, and that can be that, for lack of a better word, that capitulating moment, right?
Yeah,
I mean, from the brokerage side, and we heard Carly earlier today talk about this on RFD TV. The margin calls that are out there right now have got to be popping off, left and right in the ag sector.
That's a 3-day process.
Right. It's a 3-day process. So into next week, being a short week and a holiday week, the volume we had today, it's got all the precursors and the things you'd look for that, capitulating extreme pessimism type reversal. There's the technical targets that have been hit, blah, blah, blah. The funds going net short a certain amount. That does not mean, though, you come in here and just blindly buy it, because as we all know, right, markets can stay irrational longer than we can stay liquid. However, it does, at least in the back of your mind, you should be thinking about that idea that, hey, if things want to snap back and give you some kind of movement off of this, like the damage has been done. The USDA has said their piece. This is, my opinion, the highest acreage number we'll see all year. I think they can only walk back on this via damages from the Midwest, plus the potential for revisions into August or September, whatever you had read earlier. But it is what it is, and the market digested it and reacted in court.
For sure. Anything you think we might have forgot, Tony?
No. Run down.
On to our question of the week from producer Carter here.
That brings us
if
to
you
our
could
favorite part.
Any other job for a day, what would it be? Well, I can tell you, as commodity brokers, all three of us will probably say a day like today is not a day you want to be a commodity broker. But if you could have any other job, what it would be? I always wanted to be a pilot. Before this, I wanted to be a pilot. I love flying. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. So I'm going to go with pilot. It's the only other job. Well, I take that back, because I don't know if you have as much freedom in a sense that, like, we are what we are in this industry. But I've always felt like being a pilot, you could do whatever you wanted with the time when you're not flying. But then I quickly realized you're kind of beholden to everyone else's schedule and holidays and having to fly everyone else around, right? But I love, I think the idea of flying and being a pilot would be super cool. How about you, Tony? If you could have any other job in the world for a day, what would it be?
Boy, that's a tough one. I've literally never given that much thought.
That seems to be the theme here with these questions,
right?
Tony. Is that Carter asks us questions, and I think, damn, I have never ever thought about that, or I didn't expect to think about it today. We'll give you just 1 minute to think.
So
go ahead. You got one?
Well, I guess I'd probably say, it may not be better than a broker in some regards, but a farmer.
Pretty great job.
If it honestly could be something I would be doing if it not for our family farms or I guess further away from where I want to live. Where I live in Jonesboro, Northeast Arkansas, so wouldn't really can't talk my wife into moving to a little small town and raising her family there. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I guess a farmer, I've always grew up doing it, helping on the family farm. So, I guess if I were to pick something else, it would probably be that.
Carter, what about you?
Oh, the toss back.
I'm gonna let you answer first. So this is a good question. You got some thought out of both participants today, but I'm interested to hear what you would say.
A media production manager for Zaner.
Yeah, if you weren't a high profile social media guy.
Revenge.
An actor. That's good. Okay. What kind of acting? Theater or
we know he's
movies?
got some improv experience. We know we've got some improv experience.
Would your best role be a social media manager then? I think that if I had to choose a different job, I'm like Tony. I think I might like to grow some corn, or
you guys and your good answers.
I specifically think that I would like to raise cattle. I think if I could be a cattle rancher, you know what I mean?
It's the hats, isn't it?
They got bigger hats.
It's the hats.
These are great hats, but cattle ranchers got better hats, I think. And I don't know why. I'm a city kid, just from right over the border here in the Chicagoland area. But I'm extremely fascinated, and it looks like I think I'm going to do it. Probably won't be like a cattle rancher. I'll just be like a guy with one cow. You know what I mean? But as far as I'm concerned, I'm still wearing the hat. You know what I mean?
For sure. Well, thank you for listening to the Zaner MarketCast today. If you need more because you just can't get enough of us, follow us on Facebook at Zaner Ag Hedge, or on Twitter and LinkedIn at the Zaner Group. If you have not already, do check out our daily Ag Hedge hotline, where you can hear from our one and only Ted Seifried, our chief market strategist, who you may have seen on RFT TV and Market to Market. The best part is it's completely free. You can find the sign up for this in the links provided. Thank you again, and be sure to like, comment, and follow us on this podcast to not miss a beat, and we will be back with you as price action develops.
Have a great week. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony, for joining us. Have a good one, everybody.
See ya.